Every year, beaches across Florida post red flags and station lifeguards specifically to stop people from making one decision. But these arrogant and, safe to say, stupid tourists literally ignored every shark warning at Florida Beach. Carson Pruitt had swum competitively for 11 years, college meets, open water events, 2 regional championships. He arrived at New Smyrna Beach on a Tuesday morning with the confidence of someone who had never been afraid of water because water had never given him a reason to be. New Smyrna Beach holds a specific distinction that most tourists never look up before they arrive. It is the most shark-bitten stretch of coastline on the planet. Not Florida, not the United States, the planet. Researchers at the Florida Museum of Natural History have documented more confirmed shark attacks within a 1-mile radius of New Smyrna's inlet than anywhere else on Earth, largely because the inlet funnels baitfish, and where baitfish concentrate, blacktip and spinner sharks follow in numbers that would surprise most people who think of sharks as solitary hunters. A ranger approached Carson at the waterline. Red flags were posted, an active advisory was in place. The ranger explained this clearly. Carson told him he was a competitive swimmer, that he understood the ocean, and that the flags were exactly the kind of overcautious liability management that made American beaches insufferable. He used the phrase, liability theater. He entered the water. What Carson's 11 years of competitive swimming had trained him for was pool dynamics, lane discipline, flip turns, controlled breathing, time splits. It had trained him for nothing that happened next. The ocean does not grade on credentials. It does not adjust its physics for prior performance in a different environment. Open water racing experience, which Carson also had, trains swimmers to push through discomfort and resist the instinct to turn back. In most contexts, that is an asset. Carson Pruitt was attacked 4 minutes after entering the water in waist-deep surf, 60 feet from shore. His swimming record was not a factor. Here is something the warning flags cannot account for: other people. Simone Falk arrived at Ponce Inlet on a Saturday afternoon and saw a dozen swimmers already in the water. She saw children. She saw a woman floating on an inflatable ring 30 yards out. She did not see the advisory posted at the entrance to the beach access path, or if she did, she processed it against a more immediate data point, the visual evidence that other people had clearly decided it was fine. This is called social proof, and in most human environments, it is a reliable shortcut. If everyone is eating at the restaurant, the food is probably good. But the ocean is not a restaurant. The swimmers Simone saw had arrived before the advisory was issued. They had no idea the flag had changed. A bystander, a local man walking his dog along the shoreline, stopped Simone as she dropped her bag. He pointed to the flag. He told her it had gone up 40 minutes ago. He told her there had been 2 sightings within the last hour, both within 200 yards of where she was standing. Simone looked at the swimmers. She looked at the man. She thanked him, waited for him to walk away, and entered the water. The logic, reconstructed afterward by witnesses who spoke to her briefly on the beach, appeared to be this: if something were truly dangerous, those people would know. But those people did not know. That is the thing about social proof. In a dynamic environment, the crowd you are trusting may be operating on information that is already out of date. Simone Falk was attacked at Ponce Inlet 14 minutes after entering the water. The swimmers she had used as her safety signal were out of the water within seconds of the commotion. They had not known. Todd and Lena Birch had paid $600 a night for a beachfront room at a resort on Cocoa Beach. That number matters. Not because money has anything to do with shark behavior, but because of what it did to their decision-making. They had budgeted for this trip for 8 months. They had flown in from outside Denver. They had looked at photographs of this beach on the resort's website for the better part of a year. When they arrived and discovered that beach access was being discouraged due to an active shark advisory, Todd Birch's first response was to find the concierge. He was told, politely, that the advisory was real, that staff were asking guests to stay out of the water, and that the flags would be reassessed by lifeguards the following morning. Todd told the concierge that they had not paid $600 a night to sit by a pool. They went to the beach. A second staff member, a beach attendant whose job did not include enforcing advisories, but who issued the warning anyway, approached them at the waterline. He was told they understood the risk and had made their decision. What neither Todd nor Lena appears to have understood is that Cocoa Beach sits adjacent to Port Canaveral, and the shipping channel there creates a deep water corridor that large shark species use as a transit route between offshore feeding grounds and the shallower inshore waters. Dawn and dusk are peak movement windows. It was late afternoon. The transactional logic, we paid, therefore we are owed the experience, does not register with the ecosystem operating beneath the surface. The ocean had no record of their reservation. Todd and Lena Birch entered the water together at Cocoa Beach and were attacked within minutes of each other in separate incidents 30 yards apart. The resort's beach attendant was still on the sand when it happened. He had warned them twice. Garrett Ewell had surfed Sebastian Inlet more than 40 times. He knew the break. He knew the current. He knew where to paddle out and where to avoid. What he had built, across 40 sessions without incident, was a conviction that his experience at this specific location constituted meaningful safety data. It did not. Sebastian Inlet is one of the most consistently shark-active surf spots on Florida's East Coast, not despite its popularity with surfers, but partly because of it. The inlet structure creates a year-round baitfish concentration, and bull sharks in particular use the area as a feeding corridor. Florida Fish and Wildlife data shows that bull sharks account for a disproportionate share of unprovoked attacks in the state, partly because they are uniquely capable of operating in the brackish, low-visibility water that inlets produce. They do not need clear water to locate a target. A ranger at the inlet's parking area flagged Garrett before he reached the beach. Active advisory, confirmed sighting 40 minutes prior. A bull shark, estimated at 8 feet, observed inside the break. Garrett told the ranger he had surfed this inlet for years and had never had a problem. The ranger told him that was not how probability worked. Garrett told him he appreciated the concern. Here is what 40 incident-free sessions actually represents statistically. 40 data points confirming that Garrett had not yet encountered the event, not 40 data points confirming the event could not occur. Survivors of plane crashes have also boarded planes before. Past safety is not a forward guarantee. It is simply what happened to accumulate before the thing that didn't. This distinction between experienced and immune is one that extreme environment researchers consider one of the most dangerous cognitive errors a person can make. Garrett Ewell paddled out at Sebastian Inlet and was attacked by a bull shark inside the break. He had surfed that exact spot 39 times without incident. The 40th time was different. Priya Sethi was documenting her solo trip to Florida's East Coast on social media. She had been posting every day for 2 weeks with sunrise footage, restaurant reviews, and candid beach shots. She arrived at Playa Linda Beach, inside Canaveral National Seashore, on a morning when red flags were flying at every access point. Playa Linda is a remote stretch of coastline, largely undeveloped, which means fewer lifeguards, fewer rangers, and fewer people in a position to intervene. A lifeguard stationed at one of the southern access points saw Priya moving toward the waterline with her phone mounted on a small tripod. He jogged to intercept her. He explained the advisory. He explained that Playa Linda's remoteness meant emergency response times were significantly longer than at developed beach areas. He explained that a spinner shark aggregation had been observed offshore earlier that morning, and spinner sharks are one of the species most associated with accidental contact with swimmers because they attack baitfish by spinning rapidly through the surface. And a swimmer's limb is not easily distinguishable from a fish at speed. Priya thanked him, filmed a brief piece to camera with the red flags visible in the background, and waded in. The flags had become content. This is a pattern that researchers who study risk perception have begun to document with increasing concern. Environments that should trigger avoidance instead become visually compelling backdrops, and the act of framing them through a lens creates psychological distance from the actual hazard. You are not in the danger, you are filming the danger. But the ocean does not recognize the distinction between subject and observer. Priya Sethi was attacked in shallow water at Playa Linda Beach, while her camera continued recording on the sand behind her. In its final seconds of footage, the water appeared completely calm. The footage was not posted. Dwight Mora did not believe the warning was real. He believed it was managed. He arrived at Jupiter Beach convinced that shark advisories were a coordinated effort between local government and beachfront businesses to control liability exposure, that the actual risk was negligible, that the flag system was a legal instrument, not a safety instrument, and that the people enforcing it were either uninformed or complicit. He said as much to the lifeguard who approached him. He used the word theater, the same word Carson Pruitt had used 200 miles north, which suggests this particular dismissal has its own vocabulary, its own internal logic, its own community of people who have talked each other into it. The lifeguard at Jupiter Beach was a 12-year veteran of ocean rescue in Palm Beach County. He had personally responded to 4 shark attack incidents. He knew what the water looked like before and after. He told Dwight this. Dwight told him that was exactly what someone who had been trained to say would say. What Dwight did not know, what his framework of institutional distrust had no mechanism for incorporating, is that the shark advisory at Jupiter Beach that day had been issued following aerial drone surveillance conducted that morning by Palm Beach County's Shark Monitoring Program, one of the most sophisticated coastal monitoring operations in the United States. The program exists specifically because human visual detection from shore misses the majority of sharks present in the water at any given time. Studies suggest that number is as high as 70%. The drone had identified multiple large sharks within the surf zone. This was not theater. Dwight Mora entered the water at Jupiter Beach and was attacked within the surf zone. The drone footage from that morning still existed. It showed exactly what the lifeguard had told him it would show. Frank and Elise Corden had been married for 22 years. They made decisions together. That was the thing about them. Friends described it as one of their defining qualities. Always a unit, always aligned. But alignment is not the same as assessment. When they arrived at Amelia Island on the morning an advisory was in place, Frank assumed Elise had read the beach conditions before they left the rental house. Elise assumed Frank had checked his phone when the county alert came through. Neither had. This is called diffusion of responsibility, a phenomenon documented extensively in social psychology, most famously in the context of emergency bystander behavior, but equally operative in shared decision-making between people who trust each other completely. When responsibility is shared, it can quietly belong to no one. The advisory at Amelia Island that morning had been issued because of a confirmed bull shark presence near the primary swimming area, a sighting reported by a kayaker who had come within 15 feet of an animal he estimated at 9 feet in length. The kayaker had filed the report and immediately exited the water. Nassau County had issued a push notification through its beach safety alert system. Both Frank and Elise had their phones. Neither had opened it. Frank and Elise walked past the posted advisory sign at the beach access. They walked past the red flag. A ranger was at the far end of the beach and did not reach them in time. Neither Frank nor Elise stopped to read the sign because each believed the other had already processed it. 22 years of functional partnership had created a gap in their individual vigilance. The assumption of shared knowledge is not shared knowledge. Frank and Elise Corden entered the water at Amelia Island within seconds of each other. No one had checked. Stuart Langham told the ranger he had a background in marine biology. He used the correct terminology. He referenced shark sensory systems, the lateral line, electroreception, the ampullae of Lorenzini. He explained, with apparent authority, that the behavioral triggers being described in the advisory were inconsistent with what the research actually showed about inshore shark movement patterns. The ranger, who was not a marine biologist, found it difficult to counter the technical language. He issued the warning. He documented it. Stuart Langham entered the water near the coastal fringe of the Everglades, a zone that researchers at the University of Miami have identified as one of the highest bull shark density environments in North America, precisely because the brackish mixing zone where freshwater mangrove systems meet the Gulf creates ideal nursery and feeding conditions. Bull sharks are the species most associated with this environment. They are also the species most associated with fatal attacks on humans, not because they are the most aggressive shark in absolute terms, but because their habitat preference puts them in consistent proximity to people in conditions where visibility is low and detection is poor. Stuart Langham knew the terminology, But terminology is descriptive. It describes what has been observed. It does not grant immunity from what is being described. His marine biology background, which subsequent investigation found had consisted of 2 undergraduate elective courses taken over a decade prior, had given him enough vocabulary to sound credible and enough confidence to dismiss a warning he lacked the actual expertise to evaluate. The Ranger's report noted that Langham had been the most technically articulate person he had ever failed to stop. Stuart Langham was attacked in the Everglades coastal waters. He had known the name of every sensory system the shark used to find him. The shark had not needed to know his. Cora Winfield was not a strong swimmer. She had no competitive background, no marine training, no particular expertise in ocean environments. She had driven down to Brevard County from Central Florida for a long weekend, alone, with a paperback novel and no fixed itinerary. She arrived at the beach on the same morning. An advisory was in place. The same system, the same flags, the same conditions that had preceded the deaths described in every chapter of this video. She walked to the water's edge. She saw the red flag. She walked to the nearest lifeguard station and asked one question. "Is it safe to swim today?" The lifeguard told her no. He explained the advisory briefly. He told her conditions would be reassessed the following morning. Cora Winfield said thank you. She went back to her towel, opened her novel, and spent the afternoon on the sand. She did not argue. She did not explain her swimming ability or her comfort level with risk. She did not perform a personal cost-benefit analysis against the lifeguard's assessment. She had made a decision before she arrived, a simple, pre-committed rule that required no expertise to execute. If the people on the ground say no, the answer is no. This is the only decision framework in this video that has a perfect record. Not experience, not credentials, not local knowledge, not prior visits. A pre-committed rule to defer, established before the moment of temptation arrived. Cora Winfield went home at the end of the weekend with a finished novel and a sunburn. She is alive because she asked one question and accepted the answer. That is the entire distance between her story and every other story in this video. One question, one honest answer, and the willingness to believe it.